The silence of space was broken by a soft beeping sound. Deep in the cold darkness between two distant stars, a small metal pod drifted alone. Inside, a young man named Dae-ho slept in emergency stasis. His breathing was slow and steady, kept alive by the pod's failing life support systems. The merchant ship Starweaver moved through space like a giant metal whale. Its hull was painted blue and silver, marking it as a trading vessel from the outer colonies. Captain Veltar stood on the bridge, his crystal body catching the light from distant stars. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, and his skin looked like living diamond. When he moved, rainbow colors danced across his surface. "Captain, we have a distress signal," called out Kira from her station. She was the ship's medic, and her cat-like appearance always surprised new visitors. Her silver fur shimmered with tiny lights that pulsed under her skin. Her large green eyes could see things in the dark that most beings could not. Veltar turned toward her. "Where is it coming from?" "Dead. Space, sir. Between the Kepler system and the Vega colonies, the signal is weak but steady." The captain's crystal face showed no emotion, but his crew knew him well enough to see he was thinking hard. Rescue missions were expensive and often dangerous. They were merchants, not heroes. "What kind of vessel?" he asked. Kira checked her readings again. "Small. Very small. Looks like an escape pod." "The life sign readings are strange, though." "Strange how?" "The biological readings don't match any species in our database. The life form inside is carbon-based, but the patterns are unlike anything I've seen." Bomb. The ship's engineer looked up from his workstation. He was built like a living boulder, his rock-like skin gray and rough. His people had evolved from silicon-based life on a world with crushing gravity. "Could be a trap, Captain. Pirates sometimes use fake distress signals." Veltar considered this. In his long years of trading, he had seen many tricks, but something about this signal felt different. "How long has the pod been drifting?" "Based on the power readings and orbital decay, at least 3 months," Kira replied. 3 months. Veltar's voice carried surprise. Most escape pods could only keep someone alive for a few weeks at most. "Set course for the signal, but keep our weapons ready." The Starweaver changed direction, its engines humming quietly. As they got closer, the crew could see the small pod on their screens. It was badly damaged, its hull scarred by what looked like weapon fire. Strange symbols were painted on its side, but they didn't match any known language. "I'm reading one life form inside," Kira reported. "Definitely alive, but barely. The pod's life support is failing." "Bring it aboard," Veltar ordered. "Carefully." The ship's cargo bay opened and mechanical arms reached out to grab the tiny pod. As it was pulled inside, the crew gathered to watch. None of them had seen anything like it before. The design was primitive compared to their technology, but it had kept its passenger alive for months in deep space. When the pod opened with a soft hiss, steam poured out. Inside, they found Dae-ho. He was unconscious, his skin pale and his breathing shallow. To the alien crew, he looked incredibly fragile. His bones seemed thin, his muscles weak. His skin was soft and pink, without any of the natural armor or protective features most spacefaring species had developed. "What is it?" Baum asked, keeping his distance. Kira corrected, running her medical scanner over the unconscious form. "Definitely male, and definitely not in our databases. I've never seen biology like this." She carefully moved Dae-ho to the medical bay, where advanced machines began monitoring his vital signs. The readings were fascinating and disturbing at the same time. His internal temperature was much lower than most species. His bone density was surprisingly light. His brain activity showed patterns unlike anything in galactic medicine. "Will he live?" Veltar asked. "I think so. His body seems to be healing itself naturally. Very slowly, but it's working. I can help the process along, but I need to be careful. I don't want to poison him with treatments meant for other species." 3 days later, Dae-ho's eyes opened. The first thing he saw was Kira's concerned face looking down at him. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then he tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in his body ached. "Easy," Kira said softly. "You've been unconscious for several days. Your body has been through a lot." Deho looked around the medical bay, his eyes wide with amazement and fear. The technology around him was far beyond anything from Earth. Lights pulsed in patterns he didn't understand. Machines made soft musical sounds as they worked. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. "You're aboard the merchant vessel Starweaver," came a deep voice from the doorway. Captain Veltar entered, his crystal body reflecting the medical bay's lights. "I am Captain Veltar. You were found drifting in an escape pod." Deho stared at the crystal being, hardly believing what he was seeing. "You're real?" "As real as you are, though I might ask the same question. Your species is not in any of our databases. What are you called?" "Human," Deho replied weakly. "I'm human. My name is Deho." "Human." Veltar tested the word. "And where do humans come from?" The question brought back memories Deho had been trying to forget. Images of Earth's burning cities, of the mechanical swarms that had consumed everything in their path. "Earth," he said quietly. "But it's gone now. The Devourers came, and everything was destroyed." Bomb had joined them, his heavy footsteps announcing his arrival. "Devourers? Never heard of them." "They're machines," Deho explained, struggling to sit up properly. "They eat everything, planets, ships, entire civilizations. They came to Earth 6 months ago. I was working on a space station when they attacked. By the time I got to an escape pod, the planet was already dying." The three aliens exchanged glances. Stories of entire worlds being destroyed were not uncommon in the galaxy, but usually they knew about such events through the news networks. "How many humans escaped?" Kira asked gently. Deho's face fell. "I don't know. Maybe none. Maybe a few. The evacuation ships were targeted first, I think. I might be the only one left." The silence that followed was heavy. Even among the stars, being the last of your kind was a tragedy that all species could understand. "Well," Veltar said finally, "you're alive now. That's what matters. We'll drop you off at the next civilized system. There are refugee services that can help you start a new life." Deho nodded, though the thought of being alone among strangers was frightening. "Thank you for saving me. I know you didn't have to." "We couldn't leave you to die in space," Kira said kindly. But as the crew left him to rest, Deho heard Bomb whisper to the others, "Strange little thing. Hope we don't regret this." Deho closed his eyes and tried not to think about what would happen when they reached the next port. He was alive, but he was also completely alone in a galaxy that had never heard of humans. The adventure of his lifetime was just beginning, though he didn't know it yet. 2 weeks had passed since Deho woke up on the Starweaver. The ship had become his temporary home, but he still felt like an outsider looking in. The crew was polite but distant. They gave him simple jobs to do, the kind of work they thought his weak human body could handle. Every morning, Deho cleaned the air filters in the lower decks. The work was boring and lonely. Sometimes he would see Kira in the medical bay, and she would smile at him. But she was always busy with her duties. Bomb barely looked at him when they passed in the corridors. Captain Veltar treated him like a temporary passenger, nothing more. The hardest part was mealtimes. The crew ate together in the common room, but there was no place for Deho at their table. He would take his food to a corner and eat alone, listening to their conversations about places he had never seen and people he would never meet. "The humans seem sad," Kira mentioned to Veltar one evening after Deho had left early. "He is not our responsibility beyond basic care," the captain replied. "We will drop him at Nexus Station in 3 days. The refugee services there can find him work." Bomb looked up from his meal. "What kind of work can something so fragile do? Look at him. His bones would break if he tried to lift anything heavy." "Not everyone needs to be strong like you," Kira said with a gentle tease. Humans might have other talents. Like what? Baum asked. His eyes are tiny. His hearing is poor. He can barely see in low light. What use is a creature so limited? Dae-ho, who had forgotten something and returned to get it, heard these words from the doorway. His face burned with shame, but he said nothing. He quietly took what he needed and left. The next day, the Starweaver docked at Nexus Station. It was a massive trading hub built around an asteroid, with ships from dozens of worlds coming and going. The crew had business there, loading new cargo and meeting with potential clients. Dae-ho stood at the observation window, watching the busy docking bays. Soon he would be out there alone, trying to find his place in a galaxy that had no room for humans. Magnificent sight, isn't it? A rough voice said behind him. Dae-ho turned to see a group of beings he didn't recognize. They were tall and covered in dark armor that looked like it was part of their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind metal masks, but their eyes glowed red through the slits. I'm sorry, do I know you? Dae-ho asked nervously. Not yet, the leader said. But we know about you, the strange little creature the Starweaver picked up. You're coming with us. Before Dae-ho could react, more armored beings appeared from hiding places around the docking bay. They moved with military precision, surrounding the Starweaver crew members who were working outside the ship. Karthek pirates, Baum growled, recognizing the species. This is bad. The pirates were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced weapons and ruthless methods. Their armor was nearly impossible to penetrate, and their technology was stolen from 100 different worlds. The pirate leader activated a device that sent out an energy pulse. All around the docking bay, lights dimmed and machines stopped working. The Starweaver's systems went dark. Electronic warfare, Kira whispered. They've disabled our weapons and communications. Captain Veltar tried to reach for his sidearm, but a pirate was already pointing a weapon at his crystal chest. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Captain. We just want your quantum core. Give it to us, and nobody gets hurt. The quantum core was the heart of the Starweaver's engine. Without it, they would be stranded. But it was also worth more than the ship itself. The core is integrated into our systems, Veltar said calmly. It cannot be removed without destroying the ship. The pirate leader laughed. We know better than that. All merchant ships have removable cores. It's galactic law. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we start shooting your crew? The pirates herded the crew into the cargo bay. Dae-ho found himself pressed against a wall with the others, watching as the pirates began setting up equipment to extract the quantum core. But something was different about this situation. While the other crew members were focused on the pirates, Dae-ho was looking around the dimmed cargo bay. His human eyes, evolved on a world with a dim yellow sun, could see clearly in the low light that was giving the others trouble. He noticed something the pirates had missed. There was a maintenance shaft near the floor behind some cargo containers. It was small, too small for most galactic species, but it might be just the right size for a human. Dae-ho waited until the pirates were distracted by their work. Then he slowly moved toward the containers, staying low and quiet. His human body, so fragile compared to the others, was also much more flexible. He squeezed through gaps that would have been impossible for Baum's rock-like frame or Veltar's crystal structure. The maintenance shaft was dark and cramped, but Dae-ho crawled through it carefully. He had watched Baum work on the ship's systems for weeks, and he remembered the engineer talking about emergency protocols. The shaft led to the engineering section. Here, the emergency lighting was even dimmer, but Dae-ho could still see well, enough to find what he was looking for. The main power distribution panel was exactly where Baum had shown him during a routine maintenance check. Dae-ho's human hands were smaller and more precise than Baum's thick fingers. He carefully opened the panel and looked at the complex wiring inside. He remembered Baum explaining how the ship's systems were connected, how power flowed from the quantum core to different parts of the vessel. More importantly, he remembered Baum mentioning the emergency feedback system. If someone tried to steal the quantum core improperly, the ship could send a power surge back through their equipment. With shaking hands, Dae-ho began rewiring the connections. He had to be very careful. One wrong move could destroy the ship's systems permanently, but he also knew that if he did nothing, the pirates would take the core anyway, leaving the crew stranded. It took him 20 minutes to complete the modifications. Then he activated the emergency protocol and crawled back through the maintenance shaft. When he emerged in the cargo bay, the pirates were just finishing their preparations. Their leader was connecting a large device to the ship's quantum core housing. "Beginning extraction now," the pirate announced. As soon as he activated the device, Daeho's modifications took effect. Instead of drawing power from the core, the device received a massive feedback surge. Sparks flew as the pirate equipment overloaded and exploded. The pirates' weapons died. Their armor's power systems failed. Even their communication devices went silent. "Now!" shouted Captain Veltar. The Starweaver crew, no longer blinded by the dim lighting thanks to the restored power, quickly overpowered the confused pirates. Bomb's strength was devastating against opponents whose armor no longer worked. Kira's speed and agility made her impossible to catch. Veltar's crystal body became a weapon itself, his hard surface shattering pirate equipment with every blow. Within minutes, the pirates were defeated and secured. Station security, alerted by the restored communications, arrived to take them away. As the excitement died down, the crew gathered in the common room. For the first time since Daeho had been aboard, there was an empty chair at their table waiting for him. "That was quick thinking," Veltar said, his crystal voice carrying a warmth that hadn't been there before. "How did you know about the feedback system?" "I watched Bomb work," Daeho replied simply. "I listened when he explained things. I just remembered what he taught me." Bomb stared at the human with new respect. "You crawled through that maintenance shaft? In the dark?" "It wasn't that dark for me," Daeho said. "My eyes are different, I guess." "Different," Kira repeated thoughtfully. "Not worse, just different." Captain Veltar nodded slowly. "Perhaps we were too quick to judge what makes someone useful. You saved our ship today, Daeho. You saved all of us." For the first time in weeks, Daeho smiled genuinely. "Does this mean I can stay a little longer?" "Stay?" Veltar's crystal face somehow managed to look amused. "After today, I think we'd be fools to let you go." That night, Daeho ate dinner at the crew table. The conversation included him, and for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt like he might have found a place where he belonged. Life aboard the Starweaver had become much better for Daeho. After the pirate incident, the crew treated him like one of their own. He ate meals with them, joined their conversations, and even helped with important decisions. Captain Veltar often asked for his opinion during trade negotiations, saying that Daeho could read alien expressions in ways the others could not. Kira had started teaching him about galactic medicine. She was fascinated by how different human biology was from other species. His heart pumped blood through soft tubes instead of crystalline channels. His brain used electrical signals that created patterns she had never seen before. "Your emotions show on your face so clearly," she told him one day as they worked in the medical bay. "Most species have to work hard to read each other's feelings. But with humans, everything is right there in your expressions." Daeho smiled. "My people always said the eyes are windows to the soul." "Soul?" Kira asked. "What does that mean?" "It's hard to explain. We believed that each person had something inside them that made them who they really are. Something that couldn't be seen or touched, but was more important than the body." Kira's bioluminescent fur pulsed thoughtfully. "Like the light patterns in my fur, but deeper?" "Something like that," Daeho agreed. Bomb had also warmed up to the human. The big engineer enjoyed explaining how the ship's systems worked, and Daeho was a good listener. His human hands were perfect for delicate repair, work in tight spaces that Bomb couldn't reach. "You know," Bomb said one afternoon as they worked on a cooling system, "I thought your kind was too fragile to be useful in space. I was wrong." "We're tougher than we look," Daeho replied. "Humans survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters for thousands of years before we reached the stars." "What happened to your world?" Bomb asked quietly. It was the first time anyone had directly asked about Earth's destruction. Daeho's hand stopped moving. The question brought back memories he tried to keep buried. The Devourers appeared without warning. They came from deep space, a swarm of machines that consumed everything in their path. We had no weapons that could stop them. 3 months after joining the crew, the Starweaver docked at Centauri Prime, a massive space station that served as a hub for dozens of different species. It was here that Daeho encountered something he wasn't prepared for. The station had a refugee section, where beings who had lost their homes could find temporary shelter. As Daeho walked through the crowded corridors with Kira, he saw faces that looked like his own. Not human faces, but expressions of loss and displacement that he recognized all too well. A plant-like being sat alone in a corner, her branches drooping with sadness. Her name was Solara, and her entire species had been wiped out by a cosmic disaster just 2 years ago. When she spoke, her voice carried the same hollow tone that Daeho heard in his own words when he talked about Earth. "There were millions of us," Solara said. "We lived in great forests that covered 3 continents. Then the solar flares came. In 6 hours, everything was gone. The trees, the cities, everyone I ever knew. Nearby, a family of crystal beings mourned their destroyed homeworld. Their planet had been shattered by asteroid impacts, leaving nothing but debris floating in space. They had escaped in the last transport ship to leave the system. We keep hoping we'll wake up and find it was all a bad dream," the father said. But the dreams never end. Daeho listened to story after story. Each refugee had lost everything they held dear. Each one carried the terrible weight of being among the last survivors of their people. As they returned to the ship that evening, Daeho was quiet. The conversations with the refugees had opened a door in his mind that he had kept locked since his rescue. All the grief and pain he had buried came flooding back. That night, alone in his quarters, Daeho took out a small holographic device he had saved from his escape pod. It was the only thing he had left from Earth. When he activated it, the room filled with images of his home planet. Blue oceans reflected white clouds. Green forests covered rolling hills. Cities sparkled with lights as day turned to night. He could see the space station where he had worked, orbiting peacefully above the world he had called home. Then the images changed. Fire raged across continents. The oceans boiled away. The cities crumbled as the Devourers consumed everything. The space station where he had lived exploded in a ball of flame. Daeho stared at the images until tears blurred his vision. He had been strong for so long, focusing on survival and finding his place with the crew. But seeing the other refugees had reminded him of what he had truly lost. He wasn't just the last human alive. He was the keeper of an entire civilization's memory. Every song his people had sung, every story they had told, every dream they had shared was stored only in his mind. When he died, all traces of humanity would vanish from the universe. The weight of that responsibility was crushing. Daeho curled up on his bed and cried for the first time since leaving Earth. He cried for his family, his friends, his world. He cried for the children who would never be born and the stories that would never be told. The crying became sobbing. The sobbing became wailing. All the pain he had kept inside came pouring out in a flood of grief that shook his entire body. He didn't hear the door open. He didn't notice Kira enter the room until her gentle hand touched his shoulder. "Daeho," she said softly. "What's wrong?" He couldn't answer. The words wouldn't come. He just held up the holographic device, showing her the burning images of Earth. Kira watched the destruction in silence. Her bioluminescent fur dimmed with sympathy. Without saying anything, she sat down beside him on the bed. "My people have a saying," she said quietly. "The dead live on in the hearts of those who remember them. As long as you carry their memory, your people are not truly gone. But when I die, they'll be forgotten forever," Daeho whispered. "Then, don't let that happen," Kira replied. "Share their stories, teach us about them, let us help you carry that weight." She stayed with him through the worst of the grief. Her presence was comforting in ways he couldn't explain. When the crying finally stopped, she brought him food and water. When he felt strong enough to talk, she listened to every story he could remember about Earth. The next morning, Captain Veltar found them still talking in the dim light of Deho's quarters. The crystal being looked at his human crew member with new understanding. "You've been carrying this burden alone," Veltar said. "It wasn't a question." Deho nodded, too exhausted to speak. "No more," the captain said firmly. "You are not alone anymore. Your losses are our losses. Your memories are our memories. We are your family now, and family helps carry each other's pain." Bomb appeared in the doorway, having heard the conversation. "The captain's right. You're one of us now. That means we share everything, including the hard stuff." For the first time in days, Deho managed a small smile. The grief was still there, and it always would be. But now he had people who understood. He had family who would help him bear the weight of remembering an entire world. "Thank you," he said simply. "All of you." As the Star Weaver prepared to leave Centauri Prime, Deho stood on the bridge with his crewmates. He was still the last human in the galaxy, but he was no longer alone. He had found something precious among the stars, a family who chose to love him not despite his pain, but because they understood it. 4 months after the emotional breakthrough at Centauri Prime, life aboard the Star Weaver had found a new rhythm. Deho was no longer just a rescued survivor, or even a useful crew member. He had become part of the ship's family in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. The crew had developed their own traditions. Every evening they gathered in the common room to share stories from their different worlds. Deho would tell tales of human heroes and adventures. Veltar would speak of crystal cities that sang with harmonic frequencies. Kira would describe the bioluminescent forests of her home world. Bomb would share legends of the great stone builders who carved mountains into living cities. It was during one of these peaceful evenings that everything changed. "Captain," Kira called from the bridge, interrupting a story about human explorers. "We're receiving a distress signal." Veltar's crystal form shifted as he stood up. "Origin?" "The Kepler mining colony on the outer rim. The signal is weak and broken. Something about an outbreak and requesting immediate medical assistance." The captain paused. Mining colonies were dangerous places, and medical emergencies there were often beyond help by the time anyone arrived. But the Star Weaver had built a reputation for taking jobs that other ships wouldn't touch. "Set course for Kepler," Veltar decided. "Maximum speed." As they traveled through hyperspace, Kira studied what little information they had about the colony. "It's a small operation," she reported. "About 200 workers from various species. They mine rare crystals from the planet's core." "What kind of outbreak?" Baum asked with concern. "The transmission was too damaged to tell," Kira replied. "But if they're asking for medical help instead of evacuation, it might be something we can treat." When the Star Weaver dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 442b, they found a world in crisis. The planet's surface was covered in deep mining operations, but many of the facilities were dark and silent. Only a few emergency beacons were still functioning. "Life signs are scattered and weak," Kira reported as she scanned the planet. "Most of the population is concentrated in the main mining complex, but the readings are strange." "Strange how?" Veltar asked. "They're not moving. At all. Like they're frozen in place." The away team that beamed down to the planet found a scene from a nightmare. Throughout the mining facility, workers stood like statues, their bodies transformed into crystal formations. They were alive but completely motionless, trapped inside shells of silicon-based mineral growth. "It's some kind of crystallization plague," Kira said, scanning the victims with her medical equipment. "The pathogen converts organic tissue into crystal structures while keeping the host alive." Baum stepped back in horror. "This is specifically designed to target silicon-based life forms. My people are the most vulnerable to this kind of infection." Veltar's crystal body flickered with concern. "Then you cannot come down to the surface. The risk is too great." "But Captain," Baum protested, "you're at risk too." Your crystal biology makes you almost as susceptible as I am. Kira ran more scans on the crystallized victims. The good news is that they're still alive. The plague preserves brain function even as it transforms the body. The bad news is that any silicon-based being who comes into contact with it will be infected within hours. Deho looked around at the frozen miners, his heart breaking for their families. What about carbon-based species? Am I at risk? Unknown, Kira admitted. But your biology is so different from anything here that you might be naturally immune. That's when Deho made a decision that would change everything. Then I have to go in alone. Absolutely not, Veltar said firmly. It's too dangerous. Someone has to coordinate the rescue from the ground level, Deho argued. You and Bomb can't risk exposure. Kira needs to work on a cure from the ship. I'm the only one who can safely move through the infected areas. The debate continued for an hour, but eventually logic won. Deho was their only option for a ground-based rescue coordinator. Equipped with a protective suit and constant communication with the ship, Deho entered the mining complex. His human endurance, which had seemed so inferior to galactic standards, proved crucial. While other species might have superior strength or speed, humans had evolved for persistence. Deho could work for hours without rest, moving from section to section of the vast facility. More importantly, his emotional intelligence became the key to the mission's success. Many of the crystallized victims were still conscious, trapped, and terrified inside their transformed bodies. Deho discovered he could communicate with them through touch and simple gestures, calming their panic and gathering crucial information about the outbreak's source. The plague started in the deep mines, he reported to Kira via his communicator. The workers found something down there, some kind of ancient crystal formation. When they tried to extract it, the contamination began. That's the key, Kira replied excitedly. If I can analyze samples from the source, I might be able to create an antidote. But reaching the deep mines meant traveling through the most contaminated areas of the facility. The journey took Deho through corridors lined with crystallized workers, each one a silent reminder of what could happen if his protective suit failed. In the deepest level of the mine, he found the source. It was a beautiful formation of purple and gold crystals that pulsed with their own internal light. But as he collected samples, his suit's contamination alarms began screaming. Deho, your suit has been compromised. Kira's voice crackled through the communicator. You need to get out of there immediately. Almost done, he replied, carefully sealing the crystal samples in a containment unit. Just a few more minutes. You don't have a few more minutes. The plague spores are already breaking through your suit's filters. Deho felt the first effects as he ran toward the surface. His breathing became labored, and his vision started to blur, but his human determination kept him moving. He had seen what the plague did to its victims, and he was not going to let that happen to the miners on his watch. He collapsed just outside the mining complex, the sample container clutched in his hands. Kira and a medical team beamed down immediately, pulling him back to the ship as his condition worsened. For 2 days, Deho drifted in and out of consciousness, while Kira worked frantically to develop a cure. His human biology, so different from other species, was fighting the plague in ways no one expected. The crystallization process kept starting and stopping, his immune system battling the alien pathogen. His body is amazing, Kira told the others, as she monitored his condition. The plague can't figure out how to properly infect him. It's like his biology is too alien for the pathogen to understand. On the 3rd day, Kira's antidote was ready. She had used Deho's unique immune response as a template, creating a treatment that could reverse the crystallization process. Within hours of receiving the cure, Deho opened his eyes. Did it work? He asked weakly. See for yourself, Veltar said, helping him to the observation window. Below on the planet's surface, the mining facility was alive with activity. Workers were moving around freely, no longer trapped in crystal shells. Transport ships were arriving to evacuate the more seriously affected, but the plague had been stopped. You saved them all, Bomb said with deep respect. Every single one of them owes their life to you. We saved them, Deho corrected. All of us together. That evening, as they prepared to leave Kepler 442b, something happened that surprised everyone. Captain Veltar called Deho to his private quarters for a formal conversation. In my culture, the crystal being said, we have a ceremony for adoption, when someone becomes part of our family not through birth but through choice and sacrifice. Deho's eyes widened. Captain, I don't understand. You risked your life for strangers, Veltar explained. You showed the kind of courage and selflessness that my people value above all else. You have earned the right to be called my son if you will accept it. Tears filled Deho's eyes. For the first time since leaving Earth, someone was offering him not just friendship or loyalty, but actual family. I would be honored, he whispered. The adoption ceremony was simple, but meaningful. In the presence of Kira and Bomb, Veltar spoke, ancient words in his native language. When it was finished, Deho was no longer just a crew member or even a friend. He was family in the truest sense. As the Starweaver jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward their next adventure, Deho realized that his greatest treasure wasn't the memories of Earth he carried. It was the new family he had found among the stars, bound together not by blood or species, but by the choices they made for each other. 6 months had passed since the mining colony rescue. Deho had recovered from his injuries, but something much deeper had changed aboard the Starweaver. The crew no longer saw him as just another member of their team. He had become irreplaceable, family. His quarters were no longer the basic room of a temporary passenger. Bomb had spent weeks upgrading everything. The air filters were perfectly tuned for human lungs. The temperature controls maintained the exact warmth Deho needed. The lighting could shift from the bright white most aliens preferred to the soft yellow that reminded him of Earth's sun. You didn't need to do all this, Deho had protested when he first saw the improvements. Family takes care of family, Bomb had replied simply. Besides, I like having projects to work on. Kira had also made changes. She had studied human biology so thoroughly that she now understood it better than most doctors in the galaxy. She had created special medicines that would protect Deho's fragile respiratory system from dangerous atmospheres. She had also learned to read human emotions with incredible accuracy. Your face tells me you're worried about something, she said one morning as they worked together in the medical bay. Deho smiled. You know me too well now. That's what family does, she replied with a warm purr. Captain Veltar had made the most important change of all. He had officially registered Deho as the ship's cultural liaison in the galactic trade databases. It was a job title that didn't really exist, but it meant that Deho could never be separated from the Starweaver. As far as the galaxy was concerned, he was an essential crew member. Why did you do that? Deho had asked when he learned about the registration. Because losing you would be like losing part of myself, Veltar had answered. You are my family now. Family doesn't abandon family. Life had settled into a comfortable routine when everything changed again. They received a distress signal, unlike any other they had encountered. It was broadcasting on old Earth frequencies using human communication protocols. That's impossible, Deho whispered when he heard the signal. His hands shook as he worked the communication controls. There can't be other humans out there. The signal was coming from a derelict ship drifting in the outer system of a dead star. When they found it, the vessel was clearly human in design, but it had been floating lifeless for over a year. No life signs, Kira reported as they scanned the ship. But the hull is intact. Whatever happened, it wasn't from outside damage. They brought the human ship into the Starweaver's cargo bay. Deho was the first to board it, his heart pounding with hope and fear. The ship was empty of crew, but the computer systems were still functional. What he found there changed everything. The ship's logs told the story of the New Sol colony, a group of humans who had escaped Earth's destruction and tried to build a new home on a distant world. They had lived there for almost a year before the Devourers found them again. This ship had been their final escape vessel, but they had run out of supplies before finding safety. But it wasn't the tragic story that made Deho weep. It was what else the ship contained. The colonists had known they were dying. In their final days, they had recorded everything they could remember about human culture: music, stories, poems, recipes, games, traditions, and memories. They had wanted to preserve what they could of humanity for anyone who might find their ship. "We know we won't survive," the colony leader said in one of the recordings. "But maybe someone will find these records. Maybe our culture can live on even if we cannot." Deho sat in the ship's database room, surrounded by thousands of hours of recordings. Songs his grandmother had sung to him as a child. Stories his father had told him about ancient Earth heroes. Recipes for foods he thought he would never taste again. His alien family found him there hours later, tears streaming down his face as he listened to children singing a traditional Korean lullaby. "Beautiful," Veltar said softly. The crystal being's body was resonating with the music, creating harmonic tones that made the simple song sound even more magical. Kira's bioluminescent fur was pulsing in rhythm with the melody. "The patterns are so complex. There are emotional layers in this music that I never knew existed." Baum was carefully copying every file, treating each recording like a precious artifact. "These will be preserved forever," he promised. "We'll make sure of that." Over the following weeks, the Starweaver became something unprecedented in galactic society. It became a vessel where human culture lived alongside alien traditions. Veltar learned to sing human songs, his crystal voice adding ethereal harmonies. Kira memorized human stories and began telling them to other crews they met during trades. Baum studied human engineering techniques and found ways to improve the ship's systems. "Your people were remarkable," Veltar told Deho one evening as they listened to a recording of human children laughing. "They faced extinction with such courage." "They were just trying to survive," Deho replied. "Like everyone else." "No," Kira said firmly. "What they did was different. They didn't just try to save their lives. They tried to save their souls." That's what makes humans special. The word souls had become common aboard the ship. The crew had adopted the human concept, understanding it as the part of a being that made them who they truly were. It was an idea that resonated with all of them. News of the human cultural archive spread through the galactic trading networks. Other ships began requesting copies of the recordings. Universities wanted to study human philosophy and art. Even, the Galactic Council expressed interest in preserving human knowledge for future generations. "Your species will be remembered not as victims but as teachers," Veltar announced during a crew meeting. "These songs and stories will be shared across 1,000 worlds." Deho felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth. He was no longer just the last human in the universe. He had become the first human ambassador to the galaxy, sharing his people's greatest gift with the stars. But the most important change was simpler and more personal. The Starweaver had become something that had never existed before in galactic space. It had become a ship where family wasn't defined by genetics or species but by choice and love. During their next trade stop, a young alien asked Deho why he stayed with beings so different from himself. "Because they chose me," Deho answered. "And I chose them. That's what makes us family." Captain Veltar overheard the conversation and felt his crystal heart warm with pride. When they had first found the human, he had thought they were rescuing a lost creature. Now he understood the truth. Deho hadn't needed rescuing. He had needed a family. And in giving him one, they had all become more than they were before. As the Starweaver jumped to hyperspace toward their next destination, Deho stood on the bridge beside his alien family. Through the observation windows, he could see the infinite stars stretching out before them. He was no longer lost among those stars. He was finally home. In the common room behind them, Kira was teaching a group of young alien traders a human song about friendship. Baum was showing others how to cook a traditional Earth meal. Veltar was discussing human philosophy with visiting scholars. Humanity lived on, not in one person, but in the family that had chosen to carry its memory forward. And in a galaxy that had never known what humans could offer, that family was teaching the universe about the greatest human gift of all: the ability to love without limits. The last human had become the first of something new. He had become proof that family is not about where you come from, but about where you choose to belong.